morning, and thank you for coming out this morning. So yesterday I held a press event to commend the over 1,000 peaceful protesters who came out this weekend, right over there, to fight for an end to racism, individual racism and institutional racism. And yesterday morning I told you that I was proud to be a Rhode Islander because I saw those peaceful protesters exercising their rights to speak up against racism and injustice. And that activism made me proud to be a Rhode Islander. Today I stand before you disheartened, dismayed, outraged, and angry at the events that we saw right here last night in the city of Providence. Make no mistake about it, what we saw last night was not a protest. It was not a protest. What we saw last night was an organized attack on our community at a time when we are already vulnerable. We saw violence, intentional violence. We saw looting. We saw broken windows. We saw vandalism. We saw arson. We saw brave public safety officials doing their job with dignity, professionalism, and self-restraint, being attacked with bricks and bottles. Nearly 70 police were arrested last night. Almost all of them were Rhode Islanders, and several members of law enforcement sustained injuries. Was people who arrived with flares, with gasoline, with crowbars, who showed up intentionally with their weapons to cause destruction and violence, to hurt people and to destroy our property. They came here with an intent to harm, with an intent to disrupt, and an intent to destroy. And by the way, it wasn't just the mall. We're here in front of the mall. It started in front of the mall, but it didn't stop in front of the mall. It continued on to the State House. It continued on to the courthouse. It continued on to DCYF. It continued on to the cars in the parking lots. And you know, it continued on to the looting and destruction of so many small businesses all around the city. Small businesses who are just getting back on their feet after having been closed for a couple months due to the coronavirus epidemic. Later today, I've instructed my Commerce Department to do a walkabout and check in on every single business that has been vandalized. I want you to know we're going to do everything we can to help you, and I know you are struggling already. This is the last thing you needed, and we're going to be right there with you to get you back on your feet. This isn't who we are as Rhode Islanders. I know that. I have seen this community come together these past few months to care for one another and to get us through this crisis, the coronavirus crisis. I have seen the unity and the love and the strength. I have seen people look in after their neighbors. I have seen first responders work 7 days a week to protect our community. I've seen us stand up against what is wrong, and I've seen the generosity and spirit of the people of Rhode Island. It is what has sustained us through the coronavirus. That isn't what we saw last night. What we saw last night was just pure violence. I know that you're hurting today. I know everyone in Rhode Island is hurting today. No matter who you are, it's impossible not to be hurting. When any one of us is injured like this, we're all in it together. There's pain across this city. There's pain across this state. I want to say this. To the protesters who are here on Sunday, making your voices heard, I want to thank you. And I want to encourage you to continue to do everything in your power to eliminate racism in all of its forms, individual and institutional. To the people who were here last night, engaging in criminal, reckless, violent behavior, you will be held accountable. Throughout the night and into the early morning, I was in constant contact with Colonel Manny and General Callahan. I want to thank the Colonel and the General for their tremendous leadership. Both of them were here all night long leading, and I want to thank them. As your governor, it is my responsibility to keep you safe, and that's what we will do. I am prepared to take all necessary steps in order to keep the people of Rhode Island safe. To that end, I've directed the activation of the Rhode Island National Guard to assist our state and local police today and in the days ahead. We currently now have hundreds of members of the Guard ready to mobilize to protect our critical infrastructure, to support the Rhode Island State Police and the Providence Police and all local police, so that they can focus on law enforcement. Later today, General Callahan will come back to me with a more detailed plan around exactly how many guardsmen and women will be deployed and exactly what capacity. Additionally, I am continuing to evaluate all options available at our disposal to protect the people of Rhode Island, and we are closely monitoring using all of our public safety resources throughout the day today. I have to take a minute to acknowledge the heroism of the Providence Police last night. I want to thank the mayor for his leadership, Chief Clemens, Commissioner Parry, who are here. Thank you guys. Again, I will just say that the level of professionalism, courage, and self-restraint that we saw last night was extraordinary. I will also say, having been, briefed throughout the night and again this morning, as bad as it would have been so much worse but for the actions of our public safety. They quite literally put themselves in harm's way to protect the rest of us, to protect our property, to protect our state house, to protect the courts, to protect small businesses. They did it very effectively, and I want to say thank you. I also want to publicly thank Governor Baker. I was in touch with him through the night and again this morning. He and the Massachusetts State Police and the superintendent of the Massachusetts State Police supported us. At 2 or 3 o'clock this morning, they sent mass troopers, they sent a mass helicopter. They were right there by our side. And I want to thank the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and Governor Baker for your support. I want you to know that last night, every Providence police officer, by the way, I also need to thank the other municipal police officers that came to our aid. It wasn't just Providence, it was primarily Providence, but Providence and the state police called for mutual aid from other cities. Every one of you responded, and I want to thank you. I want to highlight that under these difficult circumstances, while they were being attacked, every officer remained composed and work to de-escalate the situation. Finally, to the people of Rhode Island, this is a pivotal moment in our history as a state and as a country. I don't know if any of us has ever lived through anything like this combination of a global public health pandemic and this level of division and violence in our communities at the same time. People are angry, people are frustrated, and people are fired up. And as I said yesterday, there's a lot of good reason for the anger and frustration. As I said yesterday, people asked me about the protests. I think it's important that we listen with humility to those who are protesting racism and prejudice which still exists. They have a right to be angry. They have a right to be frustrated. They have a right to demand change and action immediately. But violence is not the answer. Violence is not the answer. And so as I address you, the people of Rhode Island, I'm asking you to rise above the violence. I am not in any way asking you to condone or stop fighting for justice. In fact, I'm asking you to double down in our shared fight against injustice. But I am asking you to stand up against violence. Rise above it. And to those who came into our state last night to attack our community, to attack our small businesses, know that we will do what we need to do to keep the people of Rhode Island safe and secure. We have the resources, we have the surveillance, we have the intelligence, we have the know-how, and we will protect the people of our state and our community. Now more than ever, because there are so many people that are already suffering on account of the health and economic devastation due to the coronavirus. I've said almost every day at my daily press conferences, it's a time for kindness. And I'm going to end by saying that. Today, let's get back to the business of healing, of unity, of kindness, and of recommitting ourselves to a more peaceful and just Rhode Island.